all, I'm Raelyn from Common Cause, and I'm going to share our tips for talking to friends and family about election lies. We are a 50-year-old nonpartisan, nonprofit, grassroots organization working to protect and strengthen our democracy. Since 2016, we have led thousands of volunteer digital activists in monitoring and tracking election lies. And by tracking these narratives, we have learned how election disinformation fuels voter suppression by attacking the voting process and legislative solutions. But even more importantly, we have learned which actions work when fighting back against cyber suppression. We have collected thousands of stories from real people across the country about access to information and participating in our democracy. Some, like TK from Wisconsin, have shared how election lies have made them feel distrustful and feel unsafe participating in their own communities. And many, like Karen in New Mexico, have shared how they have had relationships end due to their loved ones believing in election conspiracy theories. We are in an information ecosystem that rewards inaccurate and misleading content, especially when it's about our elections. With 1 in 5 households not having access to reliable home internet, as well as the social media platforms abandoning their responsibility to moderate content, many are left without the information that they need to confidently vote and participate in our democracy. However, hope is not lost. Every single one of us can do our part to make a difference. And that is why I am very happy to share our tips for talking to friends and family about election lies. Stick around until the end to test your conversation skills in our conversation simulation quiz game. So, why should you talk to your friends and family about election lies? It's because these conversations are impactful and necessary. By talking to your friends and family about election lies, you can make a real difference. And the best part is that you don't have to be tech savvy or an elections expert to have these conversations. In fact, you are even more effective because you are someone that person knows and loves. You're a trusted messenger. In an atmosphere of distrust, we tend to turn towards those we trust the most for information. And according to the studies, those people are your friends and family members. You're more likely to make friends aware of a topic, and your loved ones are more likely to turn to you to stay informed on that topic. And that's not to say it's easy. It is very difficult to correct election conspiracy theories, especially from those that we know and love. But we have so much to lose from turning away from these conversations. And what do we have to gain from these conversations? Connecting with our friends and families on shared values in a time of growing polarization and isolation. Sharing information despite existing during a climate of online lies and radicalization. Besides, by having these conversations, you're joining the thousands of activists, researchers, and experts across the country working tirelessly to protect our right to have our voices heard and represented at the ballot box and beyond. All you need to do to have an effective conversation is to remember the basics. Here are a couple of basic definitions to remember as you have these conversations and in general as you just become more critical consumers of online content. Disinformation is the intentional attempt to be misleading or harmful. So people who create and spread disinformation are hoping to negatively affect the participation of voters in elections. They do this by spreading and creating conspiracy theories and by intimidating others. Misinformation, on the other hand, is when someone accidentally shares inaccurate information. So this tends to happen when well-meaning people like you and me try to share the information, but we just don't have all the facts, so we get things wrong. This also includes our friends and family members who have fallen victim to disinformation and they share it because they believe it to be true. So understanding the intention behind incorrect information online can help us be more effective in stopping its spread. So if what you think you're seeing is election disinformation, do not engage with it. Do not like it. Do not comment on it. Do not try to share it. Don't try to debunk it, because every single click, every single piece of engagement is basically a vote for the algorithm to share that content to even more people. Instead, you want to just report that content to the platform and then send us the link at reportdisinfo.org. If you're not sure whether or not it's mis or disinformation, always err on the side of caution and treat it like it's disinformation, and do not amplify it, don't engage with it, but do send us a tip at reportsdisinfo.org. But on the other hand, if your loved one has shared misinformation, this is the perfect opportunity to privately message them and to have a conversation using the following tips. So, tips for having a productive conversation. I call it the test method. So, T, trust, E, empathy, and S, sharing sources. And we know that starting these conversations can be the most stressful part because you don't know how they'll react or if you're going to be misunderstood. But remember, we don't have these conversations because they're easy. We have them because they are necessary. It is always okay to prioritize your well-being and knowing when to disengage from a conversation. Having a conversation where there's not a shared sense of reality or fact can be very hard and can often become unproductive. And depending on who you're talking to, questioning their perception of reality and even using words like lies may be seen as disrespectful. So make sure to have an exit plan for unproductive conversations and know your audience, and make sure to disengage before the conversation becomes hostile. So you might say something like, "Hey, how about we finish talking about this later?" Or, "Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. I have to go take care of something. Can we talk about this some other time?" Just make sure that you're doing what you can to end that conversation and disengage from it. These are great because it disengages you from the conversation, but if you would like, you're leaving the door open to have the conversation again in the future. Before you even start that conversation, you want to verify that the claim is actually false, because like, how embarrassing would it be if you work yourself up to have this conversation with your friend or family member and it turns out they were right all along? So you want to make sure to look up the claim in your search bar and then practice click restraint. So that means don't just click on the first result that pops up, click on a few of them, and then always check out the About Us page to see and determine for yourself whether or not they are a credible source on that topic. But my favorite way to verify information is to do lateral searching. So I do this by typing the claim into the search bar and then adding true, or maybe I'll add something like debunked or even false at the end of the claim and just see what I come up with. And by doing this, I'm usually able to determine whether I'm dealing with something that is correct or whether I'm dealing with something that is misleading or disinformation. Doing this crucial step, you are coming prepared into the conversation with receipts, with links to trusted sources of information on the subject, as well as how you came to that conclusion in the first place. So now we're getting into the meat of actually having these conversations. What do we say and how do we react and how do we respond to make sure that the conversation is productive? And to have these effective conversations with your loved ones about election disinformation, you need to establish, build, and maintain trust. So this means ensuring that the other person knows that this is coming from a place of love and care and the earnest desire to connect them to the truth. This also means assuming the best in your loved one. So you're entering the conversation with the assumption that they want to know the truth. If you're looking to belittle or shame your loved one for not having all of the facts, then these conversations are not for you. And it's also very possible that your loved one has been told by the disinformation spreader that they are under attack, meaning that they're going to be a lot less likely to trust that you're being genuine and more likely to be defensive. And the only way is through these conversations is by establishing, building, and maintaining that trust. So a few key ways to do that are to listen to understand and not to respond. So don't interrupt them and don't think of your response while they're still speaking. Wait until they're done talking to even start thinking of your response. Another thing you can do is to repeat back their concern to them. Repeating back shows that you're making a genuine effort to understand where they're coming from. This also lessens the likelihood of a simple misunderstanding derailing the conversation later on. And so you might say something along the lines of, "Oh, I see. What I hear you saying is," repeat back what you think they're saying and asking, "Did I get that right?" And this just really goes a long way to demonstrate to that person that you are genuinely trying to understand where they're coming from and there is no gotcha at the end of this conversation. And then, of course, Get curious, and ask questions to get to the root of their concern. So you might ask questions like, hey, where did you see that? Or how do you know? Or what is everyone else saying about this? Or even, what do you think about this? And then listen. Don't interrupt them. And then whenever you do interrupt them, make sure to apologize and ask them to continue speaking. Now, E, expressing empathy. Nobody likes to be wrong. So take care to be positive and to not shame your loved one while correcting misinformation. Shaming your loved one can damage your status as a trusted messenger and could even cause this person to double down on sharing misleading content in the future. So make sure to validate their emotions and try to really understand where they're coming from. Do not respond with judgment and avoid making any assumptions. So you might say things like, I can see where you're coming from. It can be really hard to know what information on social media is true when there was so much misinformation and clickbait. Or you could also say something like, I don't blame you for believing that. That was pretty convincing. Or I also thought that was true at first, but then I saw this. Or there should really be more protections against spreading false information online. Just do what you can to shift the blame away from that person and towards those who knowingly spread election disinformation. And this is also a great opportunity to connect on shared values and remind the other person what you have in common. So disinformation is really good at taking our most deeply held values and beliefs and warping them in ways that make it very difficult to relate to one another and to connect yourself back to the truth. So where you may initially see your loved one engaging in a bunch of misinformation, through these conversations, you can uncover that they just care a lot about secure elections. They care about fair elections. They care about the people choosing their government. And somewhere along the way, they came into contact with something that was misleading. And now S, sharing correct information and trusted sources. Remember, you're more likely to make friends and family aware of a topic, and your loved ones are more likely to turn to you to stay informed on that topic. So be prepared to direct your loved one to a trusted source and to have more conversations in the future. But always ask for permission before sharing correct information, trusted sources of information, as well as your own experiences. By asking for permission first, you make them a little less likely to immediately try to refute what you're sharing them because they gave their consent. And don't take it personally if your trusted source is not the most trusted source for them. The best part about sharing the truth is that there's likely more than one source saying that same thing. So in that situation, you would just ask your loved one if you may direct them to another source instead. And the goal here is not to tell someone what to do or what to think. The goal is to connect them to the information that they need to feel confident and comfortable participating in our elections. And a great resource to give someone is that 866 Our Vote hotline, the nonpartisan election protection hotline, where if they are struggling at the polls or if they have questions about voting, they can call and get connected to the information that way. Ending the conversation. Remember, always be prepared to become a resource as a trusted messenger. And then also have realistic expectations with these conversations. You're likely not going to change someone's mind with a single conversation. And remember that it is always okay to disengage from a hostile conversation. And where possible, offer yourself up for a follow-up conversation. So thank you so much for watching this far. I hope these tips are going to be helpful for you as you have these conversations with your friends and family members. Please remember to report election lies to our tip line at reportdisinfo.org and to call the nonpartisan 866 Our Vote hotline for help at the polls. And please share how election lies have impacted you and your family and your community. And if you are ready to leave, you can go ahead. However, if you want to stick around, it's time to practice your new conversation skills. So now it's time to test your skills by simulating a conversation with your loved one. You can pause the video to give yourself more time to think before answering, but this is a quiz game where we're simulating talking to your friends and family about election lies. Here's question number 1. So your mother shares you an outrageous post on Facebook. What do you say back to her? Do you say, are you kidding me? This is obviously fake. Do you say, wow, did this happen? Do you mind if we look into this together? Or do you say, you just should stay off of Facebook? Or this is not true. Don't share this with anyone. What do you say to your mother who has shown you an outrageous post on Facebook? You ready? And the answer is, wow, did this happen? Do you mind if we look into this together? So you're starting it off by validating your mom's experience. That was an outrageous post you just shared on Facebook, and validating her feelings by saying, wow, did this happen? Like reacting in that way does a lot to build that trust. And then asking a question of, do you mind if we look into this together? Opens up the door for your mother to say yes, and then potentially for you to share her how to verify information that she finds online in the future. Saying, are you kidding me? This is obviously fake, is belittling and shaming your mother for maybe not knowing off the bat that this is incorrect information. And by shaming her, you're making her a little less likely to trust that she can come to you with things like this and you take it seriously and have a genuine conversation about it. If you tell her to just stay off of Facebook, I don't know if that's ever worked, and it's not going to necessarily be super helpful in this context. And don't say, this is not true. Don't share this with anyone, because remember, we're not trying to tell people what to do or what to think. All right, are you ready for the next question? So your cousin says, I heard that the election is rigged. Do you say, no, it was not? Or whatever you say? Or that would be horrible. Where did you hear that? Or I bet you also believe in this other disinformation topic, huh? What do you say to your cousin who said, I heard the election is rigged? All right. And the answer is, that would be horrible. Where did you hear that? So by saying that that would be horrible, you're validating your cousin's experience and their feelings about saying the election's rigged. They probably didn't say it cheerfully. So saying that would be horrible really just allows you to react to that information, while also asking the question, where did you hear that? And that opens the door for your cousin to potentially share where they got that information from. And optimistically, it allows you to be able to steer them towards the correct information. However, if you say anything like, no, it wasn't, whatever you say, or I bet you also believe in this other thing, that is not assuming the best in your cousin. And that is a confrontational response that will most likely lead to your cousin not trusting to come to you with this kind of information in the first place. So all these other responses close the door for that connection, while that would be horrible. Where did you hear that? Opens the door for you to have a good conversation where you could potentially connect your cousin to information. All right. So your neighbor. Your neighbor says there is too much fake news out there. I don't trust insert news source. Do you say, I know what you mean. It's so hard to know who to trust and there's so much clickbait? Or do you say, you should listen to this other credible news source instead? Do you just avoid the conversation? Or do you say, what? Why not? All right. And the answer is, I know what you mean. It's so hard to know who to trust, and there's so much clickbait. By saying this, you're being real. You're acknowledging that, yes, there is so much fake news out there. In fact, you're connecting with your neighbor on that shared sentiment. However, whenever you're getting into trying to connect them to other credible sources of information, we're not trying to tell people what to do or what to think. So you shouldn't share credible sources unless you get permission to do so. And by asking what, why not, kind of puts your neighbor on the spot to feel a little bit more defensive, right? And avoiding the conversation just completely shuts down the possibility that your neighbor and you can have a situation where they see you as a trusted messenger and you connect them to the correct information in the future. All right. So now a good conversation with your brother has escalated and turned unproductive. What do you do? Do you say, why are you upset? Calm down. Do you say, you were so close to understanding? Do you say, I can see that you care a lot about secure elections. Let's talk more some other time. Or do you say, I have to go into the other room. Let me know if you want to talk about this later. What do you say to your brother where you were having a productive conversation that turned unproductive? And the answer is there's two answers. So I can see that you care a lot about secure elections. Let's talk some other time. That allows you to connect with your brother. So remember connecting on those shared values. So you say, wow, I can tell you care a lot about secure elections, but you're still disengaging yourself from the conversation by saying, oh, let's talk some other time. So it leaves the door open, but it gets you out of that conversation. The other correct answer is I have to go into the other room. Let me know if you want to talk about this later. Also does that pretty well. Why are you upset? Calm down. I don't think anyone has ever relaxed after being told to calm down, so that would not de-escalate the conversation. It might escalate it even more. And saying you were so close to understanding is condescending and doesn't assume the best in your brother and will not allow your brother to feel like they can trust you to come to you with this kind of conversation in the future. Because remember, you were having a good conversation with your brother, but then somewhere along the way it escalated. So making sure to remember to keep thinking the best of your brother and also to disengage before it becomes hostile like that is going to be the way to go to preserve your ability to have a conversation again in the future. So, last one. You are finishing conversation about election disinformation with your friend. What do you say? Do you say, do you mind if I share what I look for in a source of information? Do you say, feel free to reach out anytime you want to talk more about this? Do you say, I think you would like this other trusted source instead. Do you mind if I link you to their site? Do you say, would you like for me to share the election protection hotline with you? How do you wrap up a conversation with your friend about election disinformation? All right. And the answer is all of these are great ways to wrap up that conversation because remember, you want to leave that conversation with your friend knowing that you were a trusted messenger. And also, always ask for permission to share more information in the future or even offering yourself up to have another conversation goes a long way in keeping your friends and family connected to information and letting them know that they have a resource in you whenever they're not quite sure about something that they see online. So, how did you do? So if you got two of those questions correct, I'm going to suggest that you rewatch this video and try again. But if you got three of those correct, then you are a friends and family conversation beginner. So you just got to practice a little bit and then you'll be ready to have those conversations. If you got four of these right, then you're ready to have a conversation. Go ahead and pick up the phone and start talking to your friends and family. If you got all five of these right, you are Trusted Messenger of the Year, and I hope that you're talking to everyone and their mother about election lies and making yourself a trusted resource for information and fighting the fight against online lies. Thank you so much for watching this all the way to the end, and I hope you have a great conversation with your friends and family, and I wish you the best of luck. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.